One of the questions that I got a couple weeks ago came from a woman who really was distraught. She was distraught because of her husband's work spouse or work partner. It seems that her husband's in a job that they pair off, and he's paired with another person who basically, although their job is intense and they work together, they have both broken boundaries at night. In other words, this work partner has started calling him in the evening. If this is what you're going through, or you've had something similar like that, maybe you're the husband and your wife's work spouse is someone you don't trust and you don't like, I want to remind you that you don't want to jump to conclusions. You don't want to assume. Rather, you want to do an internal check first to make sure that you're in control of you first before you go after your partner or confront them or assume something that isn't necessarily true. Although I'll say this right in the beginning, I think if it's a work spouse, that's fine. During the day, you can work with them. You're supposed to be communicating with them. But when they're calling you in the evening on your own time, and especially if it's a work environment that's so involved, or you feel like it's something maybe secretive, or you don't want your partner to know, if you take that call in another place, it can raise suspicions with your partner. And I am concerned because if you need to go to another place, if you're not transparent with it, oftentimes that can be a setup for an emotional affair or a physical affair. But before any of that, if this is happening and you just don't like the work spouse and you feel like your partner's work spouse is invading your private time, your relationship, I would encourage you to do this. First of all, get more in touch with your insecurities. Did cheating happen to you in the past? Were you insecure because you always felt like maybe your partner was too good for you, or other people desire your partner? Or try to get a hold of where the insecurity is coming from. Maybe it's really a true insecurity because your marriage is threatened and you're noticing that there's a potential violation of a boundary, and that's what's causing it. But it's very important you get in touch with what that insecurity is. And if it's really bad and it has haunted other areas of your relationship, that is a really good thing to go to therapy for, because you can work through that so you start feeling more confident, more self-assured, which is going to help any relationship you're involved with. Secondly, I think it's important that you discuss boundaries with your partner. What are the appropriate boundaries? If the two of you come up with, you know what, I do think that my work spouse is invading my boundaries in the evening. And then you say, let's do this. Let's allow for all work calls to be done before dinner. Then after we have dinner, phones are off. Or come up with a plan that works for you. Many of my followers work in the medical field, and they're all working different shifts. And sometimes when you're dealing with patients' lives, even though that work spouse, it may be another colleague, it can look suspicious if they're calling in the middle of the night, but that's extremely necessary. So make realistic boundaries for the two of you. And once again, I would include therapy here, especially if one of you have had a relationship that has included infidelity in your past. Then I think you're always going to err on that side of being suspicious, and are you trusting? And lastly, if there is a history of infidelity with the person you're with, if your partner has committed infidelity before in their relationship from the past, then this is a cause of concern, and it's something you should talk to a counselor about. It's not something made up. It's not something unrealistic. One of the things we know is that people who have been cheaters before oftentimes can get trapped in that same cycle, those bad choices. So if your partner complains that they don't like what you're doing, that they feel insecure or they feel nervous because you have cheated in the past, then I think rather than getting defensive, it's important for you to step up and say, okay, let's redefine our boundaries, redefine our transparency. Let's go to counseling and get help with this so that this doesn't turn into something that could hurt our relationship and potentially my career or your career. If you're going to work with a work spouse or work partner, it's very important your communication with your partner and with that work partner is extremely transparent. And if you can't do that, then there's a real need for therapy or guidance so that you can feel more comfortable doing that and being that way. It's your marriages, really, it's what will fortify and make your marriage better.